Okay, everyone. Michelle Harvey here, also known as Hippie Oil Chick with Happily Oily After. As you know, I have gotten a little bit of internet temporary fame with what happened to me and my family with my son, who is 2.5 years old, refusing to wear a mask on a Southwest flight, getting us kicked off, but then having that heroic private pilot that flew us to and from Austin on his own dime. So I've been able to be on several podcasts, and I've been able to connect with people who we call ourselves freedom fighters, medical freedom fighters, whatever you want to call it. And I gained the attention of Erin when people send me stuff all the time, and please continue if you're watching this to send me stuff, because I do watch the videos as I can. I read about it. But this story really touched me because she is a school nurse, and I will let her tell a little bit more about what happened in case you haven't heard. So my first question, Erin, this is Erin, is it Pine?
Pine.
Erin Pine. So how long have you been a nurse? Tell me a little bit about your background.
Okay, so I've been a nurse since 2009. I graduated from William Patterson University, and I worked in all different kinds of settings. I've worked in the hospital, I've done surgical urology, I've done med surg, I've done labor and delivery. I've delivered a baby on my own because the doctor didn't show up. I've done all kinds of nursing. I've been doing school nursing the last 3 with Stafford Township School District.
Okay. What grade level is it, or levels?
It's pre-K to 6th grade.
Okay.
And each building has like 2 grades in it, and I work in all the buildings.
And as a nurse, you also take that oath of do no harm sort of thing, right? It's not just the doctors, it's the nurses, right?
Yeah, the doctors take that oath. The nurses follow when you get pinned at your nursing ceremony, you take a similar type of pledge, and that's the Nightingale pledge, and it's similar to that oath. Yeah.
Okay. So you've been a nurse for since 2009 in the school district for 3. You've done a lot. You've seen a lot. So what sort? Actually, first tell us what happened. So you got suspended, and what you were seeing that caused you to report to your supervisor.
Yeah. So all year this year, I've been seeing these kids wearing the masks incorrectly. They're preoccupied with them because they're not little adults, they're children. So they're not really concerned about wearing a mask properly or, anything like that. So they're touching it, they have food all over it, they're dirty. I've had kids, and not only that, but it's causing a lot of psychological harm, which we can get into. But the CDC put out a study in May of 2020, which said that proper use of face masks is essential because improper use can increase the spread of infection. So we know that if they're used incorrectly, which they are 100% of the time with all of these kids that I've seen district-wide, that it's going to be harmful to them. And I've seen lots of harm from these masks, psychologically, emotionally, developmentally, physically. There's harm being done all around. And it's really inappropriate on top of it because these kids are almost unaffected by COVID. And not only that, if they did get COVID, their survival rate is 99.997%. So I had a student, what broke the camel's back for me was I had a student come into the nurse's office, and he said, I can't breathe in my mask. And he was wearing a handkerchief mask. It was tied around his neck. And I said, okay, take it off. Let's give you a different one. Well, when he put it down on his neck, and he said, I can't take it off though, because I've been wearing it for 2 weeks. It's too tight. And I'm like, well, what do you mean you're wearing the same mask for 2 weeks? He said, well, it's tied too tight. I really can't take it off. He had to cut it off with scissors to throw it away. And at that point I was like, this is just, of course he can't breathe in it. It's probably filthy. It's probably, completely occluded with bacteria. And it's just too much for me to ignore over and over again with every day these kids coming in with these horrible stories and the potential for serious. She threw up in class, and she was just a little first grader, and she was crying. I said, sit down for a second, hon. I was taking care of someone's recess wound at the time. And when I went over to her after I was done, I said, all right, let's take off your mask. She took it off. It was completely full of vomit. So she walked from class to me wearing this mask full of vomit because she was so fearful to take it off to walk over down to me. And I mean, it's just heartbreaking. And you see, this little girl sitting there crying, thinking she has to keep the mask on that's full of vomit. I mean, it's awful. So I finally messaged my supervisor and I said, hey, look, I'm seeing all of this harm. I'm concerned about the health and safety of the students and the staff, and, the misuse of this that I'm seeing is all over the district. And I let her know about examples, specific things that I was seeing. And I asked if we could start a dialogue to discuss some changes that I thought we needed to make. And she just responded to me that, nope, we weren't going to be making any changes and we're going to follow this mandate, and it includes mask wearing. So at that point I said, okay, well, let me talk to the superintendent. I don't agree as a nurse. I don't feel it's appropriate for me to be continuing to enforce something that I know is harming children. And she didn't respond to me at all. So after a few days of no answer to that and not allowing me to speak to the superintendent, I chose not to wear a mask at work. And that's how I got suspended.
I just want to say you are, gosh, what's the word? I love that you did that, because that takes bravery. It takes courage to say, you know what, I'm not being responded to, I'm not being answered, so I'm going to do something I'm going to provoke, and I'm going to hopefully get something done either way. And that's awesome. So you got suspended. What's happened since then?
Yeah, so the thing is, I did put my job on the line for this, but I knew that was a risk, and I knew that the risk that we were doing to, for doing nothing to stop this is hurting, it's harmful and it's hurting these kids. So all of us are going to have consequences for our actions, right? Like everything that we do has a consequence. And I took the consequence. It's time for everyone to stand up and do that. We all need to start pushing back on this. And that's what I told the board when I went to go meet with them. I said, look, yes, following this mandate is what you think you need to do because it's mandated, but there's a consequence to that. And the consequence is we're harming children. There's also going to be a consequence if you choose not to follow this mandate, but at least you're no longer harming children. You are complicit in it if you do nothing. And I'm no longer complicit. After I was suspended, just a spotlight was put on this. I mean, it has been all over the place, and I've gotten so much support. We had about a week later, they had a board meeting for me to determine my employment status. About 350 people showed up in support of me in protest. We had speakers, we had, and this was a sad Monday night at 4:30 p.m. So I had so many people tell me that they took a half day at work to come, that they skipped their kids' sports programs. I mean, people are really ready to stand up and push back. And so that's encouraging, yeah. So radio stations. So the word is getting out there, and we're just, there's a lot of support to stop this, and people are seeing that it's wrong. That's most important.
So thank you. I'm totally getting chills over here. I'm tearing up because this is the time, as you said, this is the time to take risks. My husband and I were talking about how we're fortunate in our jobs, and me being a stay-at-home mom, to we're not risking too much by saying what we're saying and going out there and being a voice and posting what we're posting online. It's the people, our friends that have worked for companies for years that are like, they're tired, they're exhausted, and then they get slapped with, well, you have to wear this mask or you have to vaccinate or whatever in order to keep working here. And they've worked for that company for 15 years and they feed their families off of it. And it's like, wow, should I just comply? Should I just go with it because it's too risky to do any different? But what you said is that now is the time to take those big risks because our children are paying the price. And that's exactly when I stepped in, because as someone who doesn't have a school-age child, I've sat back, I've watched, I've had an opinion about it. My son is 2.5. He's cocooned at home. I don't take him anywhere where a mask on a child that young is recommended. But then the moment we live 2 states away from my family. The moment we wanted to fly back with him and they wanted to force him to wear a mask, that's the moment I get involved, and I see that these babies who don't even want to keep their diapers on and their socks on, they don't understand why their breathing holes are being covered. So
Right.
what are your thoughts on the mandate being 2 in order for families to fly with their children or be on public transportation?
Yeah, I mean, it's abusive. It's awful. These kids are not, like, it's impossible, first of all. It's not a realistic thing to enforce on a child, especially as young as, 2 in a day, or whatever that is. I can tell you that I've got 6th graders, every grade are unable to do this realistically. They're touching it. There's a right way and a wrong way to wear a mask. First of all, in my opinion, is that both ways are ineffective at preventing viruses as small as COVID to come through. But if you wear it incorrectly, it is damaging. And the way that you're supposed to wear it correctly to prevent cross-contamination is you have to do hand hygiene before and after. You only touch the mask on certain spots. You don't touch the outside of the mask because that's considered dirty. You have to mark the outside of the mask to make sure that it doesn't get flip-flopped onto your face. There's all kinds of ways. Then when you take it off, you have to inspect it. Is it wet? Is it moist? Does it have food on it? Does it have dirt on it? Then you throw it away. If not, then you fold it inward so that the inward part is touching, put it in a bag, seal it up, plastic or paper, and then, you don't touch it again until it's time to put it on. That's not possible for a 3-year-old,
So why do you think that this is about compliance and control? Because why do they literally not care? I mean, they can say they care, but nobody, even adults, don't wash these masks and wear them correctly, and they're not the right kind, they're not the right material. I wear one with holes in it. Everybody knows that because it's the only way. I've had problems with mask wearing from the very beginning because it gives me anxiety. I just don't, psychologically don't feel good with it on. I feel like I can't breathe, and people have called me a PUSSY for not being able to wear. I wore my mask when I gave birth. Well, just because you can wear a mask when you gave birth doesn't mean you should. Doesn't mean it's good for you. So why are we having to still do this when clearly 99.9% of the population is not doing it correctly, especially children?
Right. I think it is not about the science. It is about compliance. And, that we know, because if I were to go into the store right now and they asked me to put a mask on and I said, well, I don't have a mask, but I have pantyhose, they would say, go ahead, put it on your face. We know that's not going to protect me from anything. It's about compliance, and I think that the more that we think about that and look into it and dig more into it and ask why, it becomes more and more infuriating. So, for anybody out there that's wondering what is going on here, I would just encourage them to research and find out why. Like, look for the studies that show you that these masks are ineffective. Look for the things, there's studies out there that show you that these masks are harmful. So why are we enforcing this, especially on children, as young as 2 or 3 years old on a plane is absolutely absurd.
So what do you think about the most recent, which happened just yesterday, where Biden came out and said, basically, your choice, mask up, get vaccinated or mask up, and children can't get vaccinated right now. And that's a whole nother ball game to get into that debate. So are they just going to have to go to school and wear masks again next year? How are we going to fight this? Like, what can we do?
Yeah, I mean, I am all for medical freedom and medical choice. So, there are vaccines out there. If you chose to get vaccinated, that's your choice. But I think if you choose not to get vaccinated, you should not be mandated or forced to do so, especially on children, where we know now that, this is not COVID-19 doesn't affect children the same way the flu does. COVID really has almost no effect on children for the most part. I mean, my own children had COVID and they had a runny nose. They were on a trampoline. And they were like, why do we have to stay here for 10 more days? And that is majority of the children that I've taken care of in the Stafford School District that have had COVID also had like no symptoms. If only maybe the most severe that I've seen all year long was somebody who had like a low grade temperature for a day, with some runny nose or something. So this is this is not something that affects children on a level that would require them to get vaccinated. And we have to pushing back on this now, because if you're thinking, oh, well, next year they're just going to say, kids have to get vaccinated, you're probably right. I think that's coming down the pike. And, especially with what Biden said the other day, well, if you don't want to wear a mask, then get vaccinated. Well, that's not really appropriate for children who are 99.997% having a survival rate for this virus, and it doesn't really make any sense, but we can't just sit back and wait for it to happen. You have to start pushing back now. You have to start standing up for your kids now, form groups outside of Facebook. Sometimes Facebook isn't really the safest place. And we know that there's been censorship and canceling and all of that. So, if you guys can reach out to each other, find some other way to group up and to fight back against this, because this is the time, this is when we need to do it. We need to start protecting our kids, and we have to prevent all these things that are coming down the pike.
That's awesome. Yeah, I totally agree. I've been telling people, anyone who has any sort of authority, any elected official, be that a board member, be that at your local level, be that your state representatives, be that your national representative, your federals, call, email, let people know that this is not something that you agree with. And also, don't you agree that parents need to take us, and I know it's difficult to homeschool. I can't even imagine what the choices that parents are left feeling like they don't have one. Parents need to remove their children en masse from school, like big groups, and show the schools, we can hurt your funding. Like we will not subject our children to this, because, and I feel bad saying that, because I know some parents just are like, I don't have the energy. But at this point, our children are paying the price, and the long-term psychological consequences of this short period in their life. Don't you think there's going to be like literature written on this in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I keep saying, I think it's going to be a mental health pandemic that we're going to see in this generation coming forward. And we just don't know, how detrimental this is going to be in the long run for these kids. I can tell you, I've seen so much increased anxiety in just elementary children this year alone. So it's really important that, just because I know it's going to be hard to do, and it's never going to be easy to do something like this, to have to fight for our freedom. And that's what we're really doing here, is fighting for the freedom of our children. And I would encourage everybody to just reach out, find out who can help you, because if you feel like this is something you can't do, you could make a pod, you could do all kinds of things, and hopefully it would make a change for the school districts to realize, hey, you know what, we probably need to, those are elected officials on the boards too, go to your board meetings. You can re-elect new board members and change policies. Get involved in your local school board if you can. Just show up. Usually for most of them, you can show up and speak for 3 minutes on the microphone, and let them know your concerns and what you want them to do, and that you will band together and vote in a new board if they don't start doing what really needs to be done for these kids. So, I mean, that would be my advice, that just, you really gotta do it. We all have to do it. And, people have been messaging me and telling me, you're a hero. Thank you so much. I've been getting bombarded with that, but I want everybody to know, like, I am not special. I just did what needed to be done, and we all need to do that. We can all do that. So, and it's so important right now.
I agree. Do you have teacher support? Like, I used to be a teacher for 7 years, and I know like probably 80% of the teachers I know are fed up, and they're seeing similar stuff in their classrooms. Like, can the teachers get involved in this, or are they concerned about their jobs?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's one thing that, yes, I have so much teacher support, but not publicly.
Yeah.
And, so, or maybe publicly, but not from my own district. So like, they're secretly, and it doesn't really help that much. I need it to be publicly. If all the teachers, like if you can get all the teachers in one school to show up to school without masks, and to say, this is not happening anymore, and not enforce it for their students. I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to fire every single teacher in there. it's hard when you have, you know, one person do it, because they can make an example like they did out of me. And they said, Erin's been, you know, suspended without pay. There you go. So anybody else that wants to do it can follow her example. But when everybody shows up at the same time without your mask, think about it. Like, that would be so awesome. So if you guys can, you know, teachers can get together and say, you know what, this is what we're doing in our school, you know, go to the next level, do the next big thing, and do it right. And let's make a difference.
Well, thank you so much. This is awesome. Guys, you heard it. We're just your average Jane, former school teacher, stay-at-home mom, essential oil lover, school nurse who just decided, I'm tired of this BS. We're harming children. We need strength in numbers. We need people to come forward, take a risk, because your children are worth it. Your children are worth it. Your children are worth it. We are seeing damages, and we will not stand for it. I know these two women here, and I know there are people watching who will not stand for it, but that are a little more timid. Now's the time to come out of that timidity, guys. Use that mama bear, be that lioness that I know you are. Lion, fathers, dads, you're out there too. We need your support more than ever. So thank you so much for your time. Did you have something else you wanted to end with?
Yeah. Just one more thing, Michelle. So I have a fundraiser set up for any legal assistance that I may be needing in the near future. I've heard that it's a potential that the nursing board may be trying to remove my license. So I will need to be fighting that and any other things that might come up and replace income that I've lost. So if anybody is able or willing to donate, it is securedonors.com/Nurse Erin +support. And if you can't, if you can't donate, that's fine. Just, you know, prayers, and just do what you can in your community and show up where you can.
So because I'm gonna post this one. I'm gonna share the link, securedonors.com/Nurse Erin +support. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for that. Is there anything else you want to add? Just that mobilize the parents and help you for sure. Yeah, girl. I'll wait. Happy to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
What you're doing. I will share this. And if you have I'm just friends with your big account. If you have a private, I don't know if you're on Facebook at all, but I'd love to connect with you. So
sure. I will definitely friend you.
Okay. All right. Bye.
All right. Bye.